Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Jenna Harner on, and it is draft day. We're going to go through all the scenarios, get you ready. We got input from college hosts on the specific prospects we've been looking closely at. We also got our full first round mock draft between me and Jenna to get all our picks here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. It's time to get to the draft. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. As I said before, we're joined by Jenna Harner herself. She's the amazing reporter out at Channel 11. We're always happy to have Jenna on. Jenna, it's draft day. It's finally here. It's the last day we're putting up with mock drafts for however many months before people start doing mock drafts again. But I am always excited for this time of the year.
You know that on Sunday, or even Monday morning, we're going to
put out the mock draft for next year.
The way too early 2026 mock draft, but it's here. It's finally here. We feel like we've been waiting for this for months now. All the combine talk, all the pre-draft stuff, all the visits, and now it's happening. It's finally here. I'm pumped just because of what I feel like is going to be a decent amount of unpredictability in this first round.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things that could go in a lot of different ways. There's trades, there's expectations, and there's a lot of teams with a lot of different needs. And so it's going to be interesting to see how teams choose to address it ahead of the Steelers, and then how that leads into the Steelers making their big moves. But Jenna, let's talk about what the Steelers have set as a stage for themselves here. We're going to get to specific prospects, but the clear needs for the team look like D-line. You could say wide receivers less now because of the DK Metcalf trade. You could say cornerback maybe less because they went and got Darius Slay, though I'd argue that it still should be up there. Some people would argue that safety should be in play for the Steelers. But the big line, D-line, running back, wide receiver, cornerback, those have been the big things that have been talked about the most. And, we got to talk to Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan on Tuesday, and they were kind of lining out like, hey, these are deep classes at certain positions. I think they've done a good job creating all the different smoke screens, whether you think it's Shedeur Sanders, whether you think it's the D-line, wherever you think the smoke screen is. They've created enough of them so that if you're from the outside looking in, you don't know what they actually will prefer going into draft night tonight.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way that they clearly want it, and the way that Omar Khan kind of wants other GMs to be thinking, oh, what are the Steelers going to do? I don't think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders in the first round, even if he falls to them in some way. I think that you talk about smoke screens. I think that has been kind of their biggest smoke screen. I think it's still this team wants Aaron Rodgers. This team is going to wait for Aaron Rodgers as much as they want. And I don't think that Shedeur necessarily would be their guy. I don't entirely see it happening. There's a non-zero chance, obviously, that they could draft him in the first round. I just don't see it happening. I think realistically they'll get a quarterback maybe in the third or fourth round, kind of one of those later round guys. Same. To me, first round is going to be defensive line. It's an immediate need for this team. And knowing that there is so much depth when it comes to the running backs, especially in this class, I think they can be fine waiting for a day 2, third round running back, one of those middle tier guys. That's still going to be a really solid guy that you can plug into this roster and will probably play a decent amount early on. But I think that defensive line is where this team is going round 1. And I'd be very surprised if they didn't.
I feel like the only way it's not is if there's a run on D tackles before they pick and that changes up what they do, or if like someone amazing at another position, like for me, Jahdae Barron is a fantastic cornerback prospect. And if he somehow fell to 21, then I'd be like, okay, guys, I know we said D tackle, but we don't ever get shots at guys like him. And so that's where something could change there. But again, to your point, I think D tackle is a need. And the other thing is that it's not like they're settling for D tackle. This is a great D tackle class. And the three guys we've been talking about after Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Derrick Harmon, Walter Nolen, we're going to get to in-depth in those guys a little bit more, hearing from some of our college experts on them. But you look at those guys, any one of those guys are a first-round pick. I've got a dueling mock draft up with Brian Batko on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Walter Nolen could go as high as 11. There's some that say he could go in the top 10. There's some that say Kenneth Grant could go in the top 10. Like there's all these different ranges. And to your point, Jenna, this is why this draft could be really exciting tonight, because there's a lot of different players who could be in different spots. And then when that starts happening, you're going to see those teams start to make a lot of phone calls being like, hey, I'm willing to trade up. I'm willing to trade down. Where will they go? That's where it could get really juicy tonight when everyone's waiting around and seeing what the teams actually do.
Yeah, and there's been so much talk about kind of how unpredictable this first round is going to be compared to a lot of years past. I think, and when we get to our full first round mocks later on in the show, there's a lot of like the top. I feel like the top 4 or 5 guys are kind of consensus, but even then, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on the New York Giants and what they're looking to do. And I think there's going to be the potential for trading back. I think we're going to see a lot of teams potentially look to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to entertain some phone calls here. I don't think it's also out of the realm of possibility that the Steelers look to trade back, just based on when we talked with Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin earlier this week. Omar Khan brought up the potential of trading back unprompted in his opening statement. And he said, look, I don't entirely necessarily think we're going to trade up. Obviously, you can see what's going to happen, but you never say never type thing. But he's like, I think the more realistic thing is we trade back or we stay put. And that to me, I was like, this could be interesting, because also too, it speaks to the fact that this is such a deep draft in especially those defensive line positions, those running back positions, that the Steelers can say, yeah, okay, maybe we'll trade back to whatever position they're going to trade back to. I still think they'll stay in the first round, but that's something I'm really keeping my eye on too.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing here, Jenna, is that the trade back, partially because something that I've gone over, and by the way, I have my top 100. You guys have seen the original version. I've updated it now with new rankings. You can read it in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We have it there. But in this range right here, this 51 to 75 range, Jenna, is where it gets very interesting with a lot of these running back prospects. You talk about Quinshon Judkins, the other Ohio State running back, Dylan Sampson, the Tennessee running back, Caleb Johnson, the Iowa running back, Tate Ratledge, a guard that I think is spectacular when you look at his athletic range. And then if you say they want to double dip at defensive tackle, or they don't go D tackle in the first round, Shamar Turner, Omar Nolen Lott, there's a lot of guys, CJ West, there's a lot of guys that fit that. By the way, that's also where I personally have Jalen Milroe. There's also DJ Giddens and RJ Harvey. There's a lot of options there in that range there, but that just outside the 50, that's that second to third round range, because the second half of the second round, is like 50 to 64, and then 64 to 83. That's that first half of the third round before the Steelers get their next pick in the draft. And to get anywhere in that range, the Steelers are going to have to trade back, and it's going to take some maneuvering. It's not something that's going to be easy, but I do think it's something they are exploring, especially if you get to like 21 and all three of those details, like let's say the opposite of Walter Nolen going high happens. All three of them are sitting there, and they're like, you know what? If we trade back like 5 spots, 2 of these guys are probably going to still be there.
Yeah.
Let's use this to get ammunition so that we could get back into the day 2 of the draft. They might not get a second round pick, but even if you get an earlier third than you already have, that gets you in that sweet spot so you can get 2 cracks at that running back, corner, extra tackle, guard, receiver. That's where you can get back that second day 2 pick that you gave away for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and great minds, because that's exactly if it kind of just depends on what's going to happen with those 3 defensive linemen and how far they go. If all, like you said, if all 3 of them are there, I see no problem. The Steelers kind of saying, all right, give us some phone calls, see what's going to happen here. Give us your best offer. And I could see that realistically happening. I still don't entirely feel too that this team is going to end up with a second round pick. It would surprise me, I think, a little bit if it did.
Yeah, that'd be some maneuvering.
Yeah, it would no doubt take that. But again, I think that could be realistic, where it's like, hey, look, if all 3, Walter Nolen, Kenneth Grant, and Dylan Harmon are still there, I think that the Steelers say, hey, look, we're just going to okay, the Rams, you guys want to trade up? Somebody kind of a couple of spots behind them wants to trade, or even potentially, the Titans coming back in. I don't know if necessarily they'd go up that high. But earlier teams or the New York Giants, if Shedeur Sanders is still there, they're like, all right, hey, let's, make a move here. I could see the realistic possibility of depending on what happens there. But to me, if one of those 3 defensive linemen is there, if 2 are going to be there when the Steelers pick, I think that no doubt they'll say, hey, look, we're going to go with one of these guys. He's going to be a very solid addition to what they're looking to build in a younger defensive line of the future here.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to go over those key names that we talked about, getting insights from the people that have covered them in the college level and for our Locked On Podcast Network, get Jenna's thoughts, and we'll go through that as well as other options here for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the NFL draft tonight at 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in for that and get ready. We'll also have all the coverage here on the Locked On Steelers podcast as well. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, what I remind you, this show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and actually start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year at Monarch Money. We're also brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of the NBA playoffs, and every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's an electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as the tip-off gets closer, and there's last-minute deals to save that you can save up to 60% on. That's where everyone has to use Gametime. They have all-in pricing, means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. The seat view is a game changer. Before you even hit I buy, you can see exactly where your seat is and what it'll look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference of those prices. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, before we roll into our college hosts, I wanted to propose this to you because I've addressed this multiple times now, but I wanted to give you a chance to address it because I know this is a topic that some people are probably wondering in the back of their heads. Do you see the Steelers trading players for picks in this draft class? We've seen people float out the TJ Watt thing. I have smacked that down so many times. But the one that even I entertained early in the draft process was George Pickens, especially then right after they traded for DK Metcalf. But the more and more we seem to hear from the Steelers, and the more and more I seem to get the sense out from what other things that I'm hearing, I don't think the Steelers are even thinking of trading George Pickens. I think that there might be teams asking, can we get him for a fourth? And I don't think the Steelers, unless you come correct and you give up like a decent second round pick, they're not doing it.
That could be the only potential chance I see that happening is if a team comes in with a really strong offer and says, hey, look, we're going to give you like a mid-round second pick here or mid-second round pick here, then I could say, okay. But I think that from everything that we've heard, from everything that the conversations we've had, from what we've been hearing, I just realistically think that this team is saying, look, Aaron Rodgers we want him to be the quarterback this year. We want to give him as many weapons around him as possible. And if you have an offense with Aaron Rodgers, George Pickens, DK Metcalf, kind of everything. And granted, I have my thoughts and feelings on Rodgers, but if you have those two weapons in your receiving room, I think that is going to help elevate this offensive ceiling to about as high as you can get it. And that's what you're going to need with kind of the big question mark around Rodgers. So I don't entirely see that unless, again, there's an offer that's just blows Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, and the rest of that front office staff away enough to say, hey, look, okay, we'll do that. And then we'll look to get one of a receiver, either maybe in that round or in the third round. But to me, I just, now that we've kind of been in this for a little bit, and even the way that the two, Tomlin and Omar Khan, talked about the potential of Pickens yesterday, the other day, I just don't see them trading him again, unless there's this fantastic offer that they say, well, we can get a guy here.
Absolutely. So we're on the same page there. Let's get to some of these guys. So this segment, I'm going to focus on 4 guys particularly, because it's going to be the 3 D tackles that we've been hyping on, and also Shedeur Sanders. So we're going to get insight from our college host and then feed off of that. This one, we'll start with Shedeur Sanders. This one comes from Kevin Borbia of Locked On Buffs.
Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders is by far the most polarizing prospect in this entire 2025 NFL draft class. I'm Kevin Borbia, host of Locked On Buffs, an NFL team who's drafting Shedeur Sanders. You're getting someone who's tough. You're getting someone who's a great leader, and you're getting someone with insane swagger and confidence, likely he inherited from his father and coach Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, of course. You're also getting someone who is one of just 2 NCAA Division I quarterbacks to throw for a career 14,000 yards and complete 70% of his passes. He was only in Boulder, Colorado for 2 seasons, yet he left with 100 school records and a retired jersey. So you're getting a very accomplished quarterback, and I think he has a bright future ahead of him. For more Colorado Buffaloes coverage, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Buffs wherever you get your podcast.
So right there, you hear that from him. But here's the thing about Shedeur. The first things I heard were toughness, were leadership, and it's like, look, man, I get that. That's what we all said about Kenny Pickett. I want to see NFL traits. I don't care what records you put up in Colorado. I need to see, do you have a strong arm? Do you have NFL speed? Are you making reads at the clip that you need to in the NFL? Or are you playing sandbox ball at the college level? And those are the things that he did. That's why I'm not in on him as the first round pick. If someone else wants to do that, let that be their business. But I think the Steelers would be smart to not pick him in the first round. If he falls to the second and they trade up into the second, and that's something totally different story. But First round, absolutely not, in my opinion.
I completely agree, because look, there's been all we've talked about. I felt like this entire draft season is how weak of a quarterback class this is, yes. And just how it's not 2018 when you had Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. It's not that style of class. It's Cam Ward and what feels like everybody else at this point. Yep. There is so up and down. And it was really interesting because Mike Tomlin the other day, when we talked with him and Omar Khan, said, talking about the toughness of Sanders and the intangible qualities that were impressive. But at the same time, I want to be impressed, like you're saying, by his tangible qualities. And to me, I just don't entirely think that Shedeur Sanders is a first-round quarterback. I think because teams are quarterback desperate and quarterback needy are going to take him in the first round. I just don't think it's going to be the Steelers.
I'm right here, but let's talk about someone that people are excited about, what the traits they bring to the NFL. Here's Kenneth Grant, Spencer McLaughlin.
Kenneth Grant is one of the biggest physical freaks in this draft. Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football Podcast here. Grant, coming out of Michigan, is likely to get overshadowed by Mason Graham. Understandably so. Graham is the best defensive tackle, maybe the best overall defensive player in this entire draft class. Kenneth Grant, though, is someone any team can use on the interior of the defensive line, particularly as a run stuffer. 6'3", 339 pounds. Guys of his size shouldn't be able to move the way that he can. He'll chase down running backs or quarterbacks at a better clip than you would probably expect for a guy as big as him. So maybe not the same level of a foundational piece that Mason Graham is, his teammate, but Kenneth Grant absolutely has first-round upside at the defensive tackle position. For more on the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, check out Locked On College Football on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
So there's Spencer talking about it, but again, size, athleticism. These are the things that I want to see that translate to the NFL, not just your moxie, because moxie's great. I want swagger. I want leadership. I do want that, but that isn't what's going to win you the game. That's the additional part on it that can turn you from a good player into a great team guy. Like Cam Hayward. If Cam Hayward was just a leader, Cam Hayward wouldn't have been in the NFL this long, but he was a great player who turned into a great leader. And that's where I think the Steelers are looking at like a guy like Kenneth Grant and why he's my preferred D tackle for them to land.
I keep going back to the Michigan-Penn State game when Kenneth Grant is just chasing down and catching up with Katron Allen. A defensive lineman is not supposed to move like that, is not supposed to have this closing speed in that way. It's spectacular. And so for me, those are just like one of those little glimpses of why that I think he would be a really solid addition for the Steelers. I know there's just so much that's been talked about him too. Again, all of his off the field things are just as solid as the player he is on the field from what it sounds. But to me, that's one thing I just love is like this guy's athleticism is so pure that no doubt you're going to fit him in, you're going to plug him in on the line and he's going to be able to do so much. He's also versatile too. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he can move around. There are some people that believe that he is purely a 2-down defensive tackle. I'm of the opinion, and I think Spencer is too, that he is not that. He can play around the line, maybe not as wide out as the 5 as like Cam Hayward sometimes does, but 1 and 3 and all three downs, I think he can do.
Yeah, and I think Grant fits well too in this style of defense the Steelers have and on their defensive front. Like to me, if he's there, this has been who I think is the Steelers are going to draft since very, very early on in this process.
Absolutely. We got 2 more players to go through. We're going to roll through quick here. Chris Gordy on Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss.
Walter Nolen could be the next Aaron Donald. What's up, everybody? Chris Gordy here from Locked On SEC. And any team that drafts Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss is getting an absolute stud. A guy who was just scratching the surface on what he could be in college. Spent 2 seasons at Texas A&M before spending last season at Ole Miss in Oxford. 4 sacks in 23 with the Aggies. Up that to 6.5 last season with Ole Miss. He's big. He's strong. He's physical. He's compared himself to Aaron Donald. Now, Donald had 4 years at Pitt before coming out. Nolen coming out just 3 years of college. But at 21 years old, he'll plug in immediately on the interior of a team's defensive line, and coaches are going to love his physicality. To me, the sky is the limit for Walter Nolen at the next level. Don't be surprised if he ends up being a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year following next season. For more on the SEC, remember to subscribe to Locked On SEC wherever you get your podcasts.
So there's Chris Gordy wearing a Paul Skeen shirt, by the way. I thought that was pretty dope. Real quick, I want to throw in Spencer McLaughlin again so he can get his Derrick Harmon's thoughts and we can react to both of them here. Here's Spencer McLaughlin.
Derrick Harmon is one of the best and most well-rounded defensive tackles in the 2025 NFL draft class. Spencer McLaughlin here of the Locked On Ducks podcast. The team that drafts Derrick Harmon is getting a guy who is ready to contribute right now. He's a guy who can make explosive plays in the run game. He can make explosive plays in the passing game. He literally ripped the ball away to create a turnover for the Ducks a season ago. That's the sort of impact that he makes on the field. Defenses have to know where he is at all times. He can make plays against the run. He can get to the quarterback. He is an explosive, dynamic defensive tackle that everybody is going to want in today's world where you want to get after the quarterback. Derrick Harmon can be that guy. You want to be a run-stuffing machine? Derrick Harmon can be that guy. Quickness, power, agility, he has got it all. For more on the Oregon Ducks, check out Locked On Ducks Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
So, Jenna, here we have it from different guys on these defensive tackle prospects. I've had Nolen as my third, but he possesses that young upside. Like he's 21, he's younger, he's more raw, and there's some people that think that his upside could be the highest of these guys. I really like Derrick Harmon's upside as well, but again, like I feel like it's a can't in this situation. I feel like prospect wise, you can't lose. Like I mean, you can't obviously lose. We can be wrong at the end of the day, but all 3 of these guys grade to me as high-end, first-round worthy D tackles because they all bring something to the table that you're excited to see in the NFL.
100%. And also, too, again, not only are they filling a massive need for the Steelers, but this is kind of the way the Steelers want to build things. We've just talked so much about wanting to build through the trenches, wanting to build up front, and you need to start doing that defensively. You know, Cam Hayward, we're wondering how much longer he's going to play for, although if he keeps playing like he played last season, I think they're in great shape. But Keanu Benton having the versatility that he has, I think will be a very big part of this too. But to me, you can't go wrong with any one of these guys just because of the way they're athletic, because of their dynamic playmaking abilities. Nolen is a very interesting question for me just because I feel like so many people have him, like you were saying earlier, going at such different points in this first round. But to me, if all 3 are there, there. If I had the choice, I would go between Grant or Derrick Harmon. But again, I don't think the Steelers can make a wrong decision here.
I think that any one of those guys would be very interesting. We'll get back to you're right here after this next break. I will got to get to our first round mock drafts. Jen and I, like we've done the last few years, we do our full first round side by side, so you can see and compare and contrast where we see different teams going. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you, the show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. The hashtag hiring frame added to your profile picture doubles your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner. It's time to get to our full first round mocks and how we see this playing out. We do mock drafts all throughout the year, but this is the one I think that is always like really cool to see because you can pick all through 7 rounds. It's like, look, there's too many variables, but this is the one draft where it's like, hey, it's still too many variables. It's like picking March Madness. If you get them all right, you're insane. You might as well just get struck by lightning twice, or play the Powerball because it's just that insane. But this is where we can all look at the values of where certain teams look at certain players and where we see things going. And so, without further ado, here are our mock drafts side by side. I'm on the left, Jenna's on the right. And Jenna, we were talking about this before the show. We did not do these together.
No,
we just did them separately, and we were like, "Holy crap!" We went pick for pick for the first 11 picks together. 11. And I think we might have at least 16 or 17 picks that are exactly the same.
It looks it. I think once you get to the Bengals picks, I think from the second half of the first round here, I think that's where we differ a little bit. But I mean, all the way, our first, I think 16, other than which receiver the Cowboys are going to take here, right, are the same, which is just insane.
It is insane. So we'll run through the top 10 real quick because that's the one we both have. Cam Ward going to the Titans. The Browns going with Travis Hunter. By the way, this is a no trades mock. So if you're wondering what are the trades that we do this to show values of each team, where they are, this is not saying that there's not going to be any trades. This is just an experiment to see how we think this could go. But yeah, Travis Hunter to the Browns at 2, Abdul Carter to the Giants at 3, Will Campbell to the Patriots at 4, Mason Graham to the Jaguars at 5, Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6, Tyler Warren to the Jets at 7, Jalon Walker to the Panthers at 8, Shedeur Sanders going to the Saints at 9, and Mikael Williams going to the Bears at 10. A lot of stuff that we see, Jenna, putting them here. But let's talk about Shedeur Sanders because that's, of course, is the one that's really relevant to the Steelers. I early on in the draft process, or like at least after the combine, there was a lot of hype that the Saints, especially with Derek Carr's injury, and he might not be able to play this year, that Shedeur Sanders was a sure bet to go to the Saints. And then all of a sudden, the past couple of weeks, there have been like I don't know, they might actually go here, they might actually go there, and like that's where I start. I'm sorry, that screams smoke screen that we've been putting 2 and 2 together, and then all of a sudden you want to try to change it up at the last minute. I think that he is their guy, and I'm glad you think the same way.
And I think the second, too, that the Derek Carr injury news came out, that's what everybody across the league said. Everyone's like, oh, okay, just pencil him in right now. Shedeur Sanders going 9th overall. And everyone that was paying attention to Steelers things is like, yeah, he's not going to be there, and the Steelers aren't going to have to make a decision about him. To me, it just makes too much sense. And to me, I think that it just feels like a really good fit in that way, too. And the Saints are going to need a quarterback. So I think that that's what's going to happen. You never know, though. You never know.
You never know. Let's get to the next 10 picks here. Walter Nolen, we both have going to the Niners at 11, that being the first of the defensive tackles we've been talking about for the Steelers going off the board. Then we both have the Cowboys going wide receiver at 12. You have Matthew Golden out of Texas. I have Ted McMillan out of Arizona. We both have Will Johnson and Coastal Loveland going to the Dolphins and the Colts in that order, and Mike Green and Jahdae Barron going to the Falcons and Cardinals. This is where we start to differ because you have Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama, going to the Bengals at 17. I have them going O-line with Kelvin Banks. He's a more flexible offensive tackle that could play guard. I have Matthew Golden then going to the Seahawks. You have Armand Mbao going to the Seahawks. And then, again, that's where we kind of start to mix it up. At 19, I have Malachi Starks going to the Bucs. You have Donovan Aziraku. I definitely butchered that name, but he's an edge rusher for Boston College. He goes to the Bucs. But we both have the Broncos going Amarian Hampton at 20. And this is where the Steelers pick comes up. And we both have, as far as the Steelers targets that we've laid out, that we think are their priorities, Kenneth Grant, Derrick Harmon, they're both available. Walter Nolen, Amarian Hampton, Shedeur Sanders, all those guys are off the off the board here. But we both have the Steelers going Kenneth Grant and Jenna. I think part of it is because when a lot of people really like Darren Harmon, right? And I like Derrick Harmon. I'm not saying I don't like him. I love talking to him at the draft, even if he was 2.5 hours late. Or at the combine, excuse me. But my thing is Kenneth Grant. I think he immediately boosts your run defense.
Yeah.
And he can be that dangerous pass rusher. Whereas I think Derrick Harmon is going to be that pass rusher guy that takes a few years to get into it. And that's why I think there's more value here on Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I will also add too that if Shedeur Stewart is there, like he is I think on both of ours.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
I could see the Steelers going for him. I know, but I also think his numbers were a little fluky, and I think he's kind of one of those guys that has been talked about that has some more versatility on the defensive line. So
he does.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's there. I don't entirely know if I feel like he's going to be, even though that's the way this mock fell. If he's still there, I could see the Steelers potentially looking to add him, but I think that Grant feels like the safer bet. I feel like he's a plug and play type of guy, someone that can get in and get a lot very early for the Steelers. So yeah, I've been saying Grant all along, and I'm not going to stray from it.
You know, it's really funny. Shedeur Stewart, I have him ranked as 21st on my Steelers big board, my top 100 big board. So that would, and I think part of it is because he is a perfect 10 in the relative athletic score. He is insanely athletic. So a lot of people they're like, isn't this just a Marvin Leal all over again? He's outside, but he's inside, but he's nowhere. It's very different because the Marvin Leal had that and had a lot to grow in. Shedeur Stewart is coming as one of the best athletes in this draft class. Period. Not just D-line, not just edge rushers, period. And so that's where I think there could be a difference there. Great point on your part to call that out there. But we both have Kenneth Grant. And then behind the Steelers, we'll run through our picks here. I have Great Zabel going to the Chargers, Shedeur Stewart then going to the Packers, Nick Eamon-Worry to the Vikings, Armand Mbao going to the Texans, Jackson Dart going to the Rams, the Ravens picking up Josh Simmons, Derrick Harmon going to the Lions, Aziraku going to the Commanders at 29, the Bills getting Trey Amos, and then the Chiefs getting Josh Connolly, and the Eagles getting James Pierce. You have Ted McMillan to the Chargers because he's still on your board there. James Pierce then going to the Packers. Gray Zabel then going to the Vikings. Josh Simmons being a Texan. Emeka Egbuka going to the Rams. Malachi Starks going to the Ravens. Luther Burden to the Lions. Trey Amos to the Commanders. Shedeur Stewart then to the Bills. Kelvin Banks to the Chiefs, and then finally Josh Connolly to the Eagles. So all that being said here, though, like the D tackles went off the board. The edge rushers there. A lot of tackles are gone there. We both have you have Luther Burden. That's the thing. I think that's one thing that you have. You have more receivers going in the first round than I do because I don't have Burden or Egbuka as first round picks because I kind of bought in on the Rams liking the idea of getting Jackson Dart because I've heard rumors that they like him, but they don't like it. They don't need him to start, so they can draft him, let him learn behind Matt Stafford for 2 years, and then see if he's ready then. And then that way it goes in that direction. But Jenna, I think it's really interesting how this plays out with everyone has a lot of different directions you could go here. But for the Steelers, remember they have that third round pick. So the behind them doesn't matter as much because you're not looking to get you're looking at those early second round options. But still, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what position gets run on first in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of us have only one running back going, Hampton in his halfback position.
Yeah. And then, Gene T, but yes,
of course.
But still, Travion Henderson, the number 3 running back for a lot of people, and he's my number 3 running back. I actually bumped him up to 27 in my big board, my top 100, because his stock did rise. I still don't think he goes in the first. I think he's going to be an early second round pick for somebody, and he's going to come off the board. And that's what's going to be interesting to see is what happens to the running back class as the Steelers wait for their next day 2 pick to come aboard.
I think too, there's a real chance that, I'm not entirely sure what picks are going to go in terms of runs in the first round, but I think the second, once the running backs get taken, they are going to start flying off the board. I think that's what's absolutely going to happen. But again, there's so much depth that there could be a couple guys in the second, and then, the Steelers will have their pick of a handful or, 4 of them in the third too. So I've been saying from day one, it's going to be defensive line first round. It's going to be running back third round. And I really think that's what's going to happen for the Steelers.
I agree with you entirely. After the 50th, from 50 to 75, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 running backs between 50 and 75 on my big board. And that is the sweet spot. And because again, that doesn't mean that's exactly where they're going to get picked. That's where I have them ranked. I would be willing to gamble that some of those running backs are going to fall to 83 where the Steelers naturally pick, and they're going to be very happy with who they get there. And then again, even if they don't, there's still like guys like that doesn't include guys like Damian Martinez, who I have just outside of my top 75 at 80. And there's other guys as well further down the list that I think also the Steelers kind of fit what they're trying to do here. But that's the options they have here still. First round. Bottom line, we're looking at D tackle. We don't think the Steelers are going Shedeur Sanders. Both of us have Kenneth Grant. Let us know what you think where the Steelers are going in the comment section. And hey, if you want to play along with us, the way I do it, Jenna beat me by a point last year because. But how we score this is how I score this. Not everyone does this. When you do the first full round first mock, don't do any trades. If you want to play along with us, you get a point for every player that you get correct to the number that they were picked at and to the team that they were picked at. So, for example, we would each get if we were perfect in our top 10 because we both had the same top 10 picks, we'd each get 20 points for that. But if for say Mike Green was picked at 15. But was traded up from another team. Like if he goes 15 to like the Commanders or something, because they traded up with the Falcons, we would only get 1 point for that because it's the right position, but not the right team. Or say, for example, the Colts do get Colston Loveland, but they traded back to 20 with the Broncos and they still got him at 20. Then you'd only get the 1 point for picking the right team versus the right number. So if you want to play along, that's how we do it for the points. You can get a total of 64 points. It's just a silly way to play this game. Jenna beat me last year. You're not beating me this year, though. I'm getting my comeback. Well, it was 1 point. I could not believe it at the end of the day. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But it's the fun of the NFL draft. Jenna, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work and what you might be doing for draft night.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram Jenna_Harner, and locally in Pittsburgh, or if you're out of the television market here and you want to watch online, we will have a draft special. So from 11:15 to 11:30 tonight, again, WPXI, also on the app. We will be breaking everything down. Usually the Steelers where 21 falls, if the Steelers stay at that pick, is around 10 till 11. So ideally we'll have brand new reaction. We might hear from the first round pick. So definitely tune in for that. I will be down at the facility all night long, bringing you guys the latest.
Absolutely. She's Jenna Harner. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social media, same handle everywhere at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette at post-gazette.com. I've got my top 100 big board. I've also got my dueling mock alongside Brian Batko, so you can compare my picks to him there as well. If you want to see how other people are looking at this draft class, you can always catch me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast on your favorite favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Also, a reminder, because I've said this, I will be doing a live show on the NFL Draft, a live stream that you can follow on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's YouTube page. I think also we have Facebook Live as well. But if you want to follow along, we'll have it there. Do tune in. It'll be from 8 p.m. all throughout the first round, and we're also doing day 2 of the draft there. But if you live in Pittsburgh, come say hi at Mike's Beer Bar. That's where we'll be posted up. It'll be a great time. We have a lot of different things we'll be discussing all throughout this draft process. And then, of course, you come back here to the Locked On Steelers podcast, you will get my reactions right here, because we will still be doing all of our content the nights of the draft to get you ready and to get you all my reactions here. Keep it here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you tonight after the NFL Draft.